I'm Dr. Barry, licensed psychologist, and here I share legal and entertainment news from a psychological perspective. Thank you to everyone that asked me to cover this case. It does look like chopped trials that this case is close to you and that you might know at least one of the lawyers involved. That is super cool. Christy, like I said, I'm glad to be covering this case. Welcome to Texas Redhead and also Jess and to everybody else watching. Hey, Lisa. And with this case, we have to go back to 2022. Jay Lee goes missing in a college town, and they still have not recovered his body. This is a great time for me to talk about gender expression versus gender identity. There was a witness in this case. Uh, Let me go on ahead and get to that part. All right. So in this trial, I have the links down below, I believe, to the opening statements. Let's see. Yes, I'm sharing the right one. Here we go. And hmm, Jay Lee's mom testified because they have to prove that Jay Lee is deceased because they have not recovered his body. And Jay Lee was very close to his mother, called her on a regular basis, and no one has heard from him since he had an encounter with Timothy Herrington Jr. Yeah, it really is sad that his body has not been recovered. I don't know because Timothy Harrington is the defendant in this case, and he is charged with capital, like he's charged with DP, similar to Chad Daybell. This is a death P case, and I am wondering if the prosecution has but Timothy is saying he's completely innocent. Timothy's family does not believe that he did this. There are some issues around possibly Timothy's sexuality that come up in this case because Jay Lee was Timothy's first encounter with a man. And what happened was, and they're gonna get into it, okay? So that's why I have the trigger warning. I have the trigger warning already because the text messages get get into the details of their interactions. Nothing was, but like it starts like it sounds like it starts as a consensual relationship. It sounds like something happened that caused Jay Lee to block Timothy. And Jay Lee kind of vaguely threatens to possibly out Timothy. And then Timothy starts frantically messaging him. I'm talking like early in the morning, like 5 a.m. He's frantically messaging him to try to get him to come back over to the tune of Timothy creates a fake account on Snapchat, I guess, like he creates a brand new account that's connected back to a podcast I was not able to find. They might have taken it down because in the trial, it comes up that that account is linked to a podcast episode. And so that's how they're able to link it to him. This case is just, oh, it's a very, very sad case. Timothy is innocent until proven guilty. The state just rested today, and we might play a little bit of that. And the defense has started their part of the case. I want to start out with talking a little bit about Jay Lee. So on Instagram, and I have this linked down in the description, there is a Justice for Jay Lee Instagram. I don't know if that's official. So that was just something that I found in kind of doing research for this case. Um, so Jay's name is Jimothy. I'm sorry, is oh my gosh, y'all know me in names because Timothy is the other guy. That's but no. So Jay Lee, his name is Jimmy Jay Lee. He was 20 years old, a student from Jackson, Mississippi. He moved to Oxford, Mississippi to attend the University of Mississippi to study social work. Jay Lee was known to organize events for the community and was a social advocate. He graduated from the University of Mississippi on May 7th, 2022, because Jose, one of Jay's friends, testified in this case, and that's how we hear about Jay, the fact that he liked to wear heels, but he very much identified as a man, and that's where we talk about gender expression versus gender identity. All right. He was a music lover and regularly performed. It looks like he did drag. I don't know if he would call it drag. I think he might call it drag. He did performances and, maybe not quite full, I don't know, but he did performances and really liked to, express himself, was very much into fashion. Jay Lee went missing after leaving his Oxford apartment on July 8th, 2022. He was known to be a night owl and frequently stayed up all night into the early mornings. That early Friday morning, he wished his mom happy birthday. That is I think that's one of the last messages that she received from him. He posted on social media and said goodbye to his dog Lexi, and he considered his dog to be like his daughter before getting into his car at 5:58 a.m. Jay Lee left campus, and they have him on camera in a robe, gray slippers, and a hair bonnet. The LGBTQ community are victims of DV and unaliving at disproportionate rates. The LGBTQ community is 4 times more likely to be victims of violent crimes. 27% of those crimes are committed specifically against gay men. In January 2022, Mississippi legislature declined to expand the state's hate crime laws to include the LGBTQ community. Because I was wondering why this wasn't being looked at as a potential hate crime. So it looks like the federal government would have to get involved if there was enough to consider it to be this. It sounds like this was like I don't know. So we'll get into the details in just a moment and we can chat. Who is responsible for the disappearance of Jay Lee according to Justice for Jay Lee? Okay, that's what I'm reading. Exactly 2 weeks after Jay Lee's disappearance, Oxford police announced that they had arrested Sheldon Timothy Herrington. He's known as Timothy, was charged with unaliving and held with no bond. He's also a graduate from the University of Mississippi, and making him and the victim classmates. Timothy is best known, so they're gonna talk about because at one point, Timothy's wait a minute, his uncle was his lawyer. Carlos Moore is a I think he's a judge, according to this, a Mississippi judge and National Bar Association president, but he stepped down, and I think at one point he was co-counsel. I have not seen him at all. So I don't know who it is at all. I'm gonna talk about the hair at the end. I know that I've surprised y'all. I almost posted a picture of the new hair, but I didn't. I didn't. And it really is sad that he disappeared on his mother's birthday. It really, because I'm sure July 8th is probably a very, very difficult day for her. And she gets very emotional on the stand, talking about her son. Because so they talked every day, and it is completely not like him to have no communication with his mother. They also clarified that he wasn't having thoughts of unaliving himself. He wasn't in any type of mental health crisis or anything like that. Sheldon Timothy, so he had a bond hearing. So Timothy was released on bond, which the community was not happy about because they were concerned. But he's been out on bond. All right. let's see, justice for Jay Lee. All right. And then a brief summary. So, missing since July 8th at 5:17 a.m. on July 8th. Jay received a Snapchat message from the new account that Jay Lee, because Jay Lee had blocked Timothy's other account. Okay. And eventually, Jay Lee does realize that it was Timothy, and because he ends one of the messages with Tim, so they do know that he was aware who it was. In the interview with police, so Timothy was interviewed by the police. The audio on the interview is horrible. Okay, I do not like bad audio, so it's hard for me to listen to things anyway, and then to have it the audio be bad. Like I can't. But within the interview, Timothy described his relationship with Jay Lee as sexual. He told police that Jay Lee had blocked one of his accounts on Snapchat, which was their way of communicating. He then created multiple accounts. Prosecutors showed the Snapchat thread between Herrington and Lee at 6 a.m. on July 8th, the last day Jay Lee was known to be alive. And Jay Lee messaged that he was going to go over to Herrington, to Timothy's apartment, and we'll get into the details of that in a minute, but yes. It seems like within their relation, well, it wasn't like a relation, it sounds like it was like a hookup situation, and in their first encounter, it sounds like, based on the messages, it sounds like Timothy wasn't reciprocal and was very one-sided, and Timothy agreed to, um to be reciprocal to start the next time. Well, I'm being I can't say certain words, but the audio is going to say them. All right. And so then so once Jay Lee agrees to come over, Timothy Harrington Googles on his MacBook, how long does it take to strangle? And what automatically comes up in the search bar is someone Gabby Petito. For some reason, when you type that into Google, I don't know if that still works. Let me see. I don't even want to try because I don't want that kind of evidence on my any computers. But because they got all the data. This case has a lot of data. Um uh and still natural. There's no relaxer. I trimmed my hair, so I can't be trusted with scissors. I straightened it so I could do that. All right. So this is at 5:56 a.m. Timothy Harrington Googles on his MacBook, how long does it take to strangle? And what automatically comes into the recommended search is someone Gabby Petito. At 5:58 a.m., surveillance cameras, so that's like 2 minutes later, show Jay Lee okay, so show Jay Lee getting into his car and driving away from home. At 6 a.m., Jay Lee's cell phone data shows he's less than 150 feet away from Harrington's apartment building. 6:03 a.m., Jay Lee sent a message to that second Snapchat account that said open, probably like open the door. After that, Jay Lee's phone location data never picks up again, and Jay Lee has not been heard of since. And there's some additional details that I will that we will kind of talk about. Let me know if you all have any general questions. This case is very hard. So they're currently on day 7. Some of this trial has went slower for me, because there were some days when I was watching it and I was like, "Did we already see this?" Like, some of the but I think the state is just laying out their case. Alright, and so let's, um, I believe a former professor, because this woman testified and knew a lot about his social work degree, And then this is Jose, and, he was the one that provided the information about, Jay Lee's, and I think the pronouns, I'll just say I'm not sure. Um, but I think everybody's referred to Jose as he, him. Hoy, let's talk about Mississippi, okay? So I have worked with individuals that are in the LGBTQ community. I'm in Virginia, which is still south of the Mason-Dixon line, but the further south you go, the more difficult things can get. I thought Jose did a phenomenal job with his testimony. And the prosecution really leaned on Jose to help explain to the jury the gender expression versus gender identity issue. But within the South, there can be, it's the Bible Belt, all those things. There can be a lot of negative views, and it can be really difficult for individuals within the LGBTQ community. I don't know if Timothy identifies as gay, if he was experimenting, because it comes out that this was his first encounter. Um, and but it does, from the evidence that was shown, so I don't, from what the prosecution's theory of this case is that Timothy was afraid that the sexual nature of their relationship was going to be exposed, and that was part of the reason why this happened. Um, yeah. Lisa, I think there was community support for Jay Lee because Mississippi is difficult. Um, yes, and that's correct. And so that's where, like, because he could be bisexual, he could be, um, like, there are a lot of different, there are a lot of different options. Uh, there is a doctor, Dr. Joe Court is he's a gay man that does a lot of trainings, and I take his trainings just to better understand things. Because I work with individuals that are a part of the LGBTQ community, and Dr. Because people will get mad at Dr. Joe for talking about, sometimes there are straight men that experiment with men, but they identify as straight. They don't they because that it's about identity, how people identify, and it can become a whole thing. Because the idea of being closeted came up a lot. And yes, and so Jess, I've also mentioned the fact that sometimes people talk about the LGBTQ community like it's like a close knit community, and there can be a lot of, because there is, you know, because sometimes gay men aren't always accepting of trans men, or sometimes there can be issues that come up within a community. Jess, I remember when growing up, when people would make very, judgy statements about people who were bisexual. And you can still kind of hear some of those questions and everything. But Christina, welcome. And the question is, with the allowed evidence and not allowed on technical difficulties, do we think he's guilty? So I don't know. The defense is presenting their case. It sounds like Timothy owned a moving company, and because the first witness the defense called, because Timothy went and bought duct tape, because he's also charged with kidnapping, because his team tried to get that charge thrown out, but the way that they described it was because he lured, so the prosecution believes that Jay Lee was lured to Timothy's apartment under false pretenses, that was why. Um, all right. And so let's go on ahead, and I want to check out a little bit of the testimony from the detective that I think did a good job kind of summarizing what's been happening. All right. So let's go on ahead and watch a little bit of this. So this is just the way the camera feed is in this part of the trial. Uh, there is a law enforcement officer that's on the stand. The African American woman is one of the prosecutors. There is a male prosecutor and a female prosecutor. Timothy is the African American male right here. This is the defendant. And I'm circling it like y'all can see. So on the left side, there's an empty chair, and then the next person over, that is Timothy. All right, let's go on ahead and play a little bit of this. I've already given you the content warning that the language in the messages gets sexual in nature. So if you have like have headphones or something, or if you're watching at work, I wouldn't play this part out loud unless you work at a place where that's cool.
All right, go ahead. You may proceed.
Detective Baker, yesterday on uh, cross examination, you were asked about um, how you all, as an OPD, got Jaylee's toothbrush from his apartment and more than 14 days after July 8th, and you searched Timothy Harrington's apartment more than 14 days after, and why that didn't corrupt the DNA in Jaylee's toothbrush. Explain to me the difference.
Yeah, so the difference is that Jaylee's apartment had been preserved. Jaylee's roommates had already moved out, so there was nobody there. Jaylee hadn't come back, and so it was preserved. There had been no contamination because nobody was in and out, with a few law enforcement who are trained to not contaminate the scene as little as possible. And so the difference between Harrington's apartment is he'd been in and out for 14 days, in and out roughly. So he'd been in and out, unlike Jaylee's apartment.
So this was live, and so there are not captions. Captions are not available. I do think there was similar. So at least on this feed, let me see. Sometimes Law and Crime takes down the live because it's currently being shown on the Law and Crime Trials channel. That's the channel that this is currently being played on. Let me see. They have closed caption. Okay, good. I found one with, closed captioning. Let's find a similar location. Is this from today, though? Yeah, day 7. Perfect, good. Give me a moment to find where we were. Okay, here we go. Okay, I don't know that this is the exact place, but this at least has closed captioning. Let me see. I think this is when they're going back and forth about I just wanna make sure that I'm at the right place. The defense objects a lot, and to me, sometimes the defense, like, interrupts at times. I don't know. It just that's how it feels to me. Y'all can let me know if y'all feel different about that. It feels like the defense interrupts at times. Um, I think they're talking about evidence here. I don't think this is when he's on the stand. Let's check.
Email that was, but I was told to send to B. Hartfield.
Yeah, that was from earlier. Let's see. 'Cause I'm not seeing the same part where he was on the stand. I'm not seeing the same part. Grr. I don't know if they cut this part out because it should be. Oy. I'm trying. Okay, because this one. Technical difficulties. Thank y'all for being patient. I appreciate you all. Because I'm trying to find the part where he was on the stand. Okay, this might be her. Is this it? I think she's
She
still
told me to email.
she's still talking about the emails. And that's where the judge ruled. And then I think that's the lunch break. Yeah, and then so I think maybe there's a part 1. I wonder if Long Crime has a part 1 because that's day 7. I'm sorry, y'all. So, I don't have it with closed captions, okay? I tried. All right, let's keep going.
Searches you all did in 2024. Why are you all, as in the OPD, searching in regards to this case in 2024?
So we've continued to look at this over the last 2 years, continued to analyze phone data, location data, all these areas of possibility where Jay Lee's body could be. And so just because we did a search and we didn't do a report because we found nothing, I mentioned SOP yesterday, our standard operating procedure doesn't require us to write a report just if there's nothing there to report. And so from that day that we started the investigation until we find Jay Lee's body, I will be continuing to look for Jay Lee's body for that family, no matter what.
And finally, Detective Baker, based on your investigation, text messages, the interviews, all this video, including your interview of Timothy Herrington, what did your investigation reveal happened to Jay Lee?
So right now, the defense is objecting that question is way too broad, understandably.
Rephrase your question anyway, narrow it down a little bit.
What did your investigation reveal happened on July 8th, 2022?
I'm gonna try to get a more specific question. All right.
I'll rephrase, Your Honor. Detective Baker, based on your investigation, what did your investigation reveal happened between Jay Lee and Timothy Herrington on July 8th, 2022, between the hours of 4 o'clock a.m. and 7:30 a.m.?
I'm going to allow to ask that question.
All right, so let me tell you what happened during the time between.
I'm going to hang on. I'm going to let him testify as to point to data that would support anything he's saying. He can't just say that. If he, I would prefer a more specific question. What did your investigation show happened at 4:02 a.m.?
Your Honor, I can ask it in order.
That would be a more appropriate question.
Detective Baker, what did your investigation show that Jay Lee was doing at 4 o'clock a.m. with Timothy Herrington? Right, it's 4 o'clock, 4:01 a.m.
So our investigation showed that Jay Lee had left his apartment and drove over to Tim Harrington's apartment to meet for a mutual sexual encounter. Then, after that sexual encounter, where there was a little disagreement, whatever, over Jay Lee giving Timothy Harrington oral sex.
Yes, Your Honor,
So the defense is getting upset that they're saying that the argument was about Timothy, not because Jay Lee gave Timothy. So I told y'all, I've already given you all the warnings, oral sex, but it was not reciprocated. And so, yeah.
Defendant's interview
reference the testimony that supports, reports that anyway. What's the basis of your knowledge?
Detective Baker, what is the basis of your knowledge that Jaylee was upset?
Tim Herrington said that in his interview.
Was that also in the messages that Jaylee sent to Tim Herrington after he left the apartment?
Yes.
Following being upset, leaving the apartment, Jaylee, what did he do to Tim Harrington's social media accounts?
So after Jaylee left that first encounter, he went back home and he blocked Tim Herrington on all known social media accounts.
And what did Jaylee message Tim Harrington around the time he blocked him?
So on Instagram, Jaylee sent Tim Herrington, "I just wanted to be able to say, I had you be on the down low. It was fun being your first guy. Now you're back to block."
All right. So I want to repeat that Jay Lee messaged Timothy after that interaction and said something to the effect of like, I'm glad I was your first guy, like had to be on the DL. Now you're blocked. DL is down low, like secret or something.
And after that, immediately after that, did Tim Harrington contact Jaylee again?
Yes. So that had Timothy Harrington then contacted Jaylee on an anonymous Snapchat account.
And did Jaylee know who was contacting him?
No, he did not.
And how do you know that?
Because he asked him who the fuck is this?
And then what did Tim Harrington do after being asked that question?
Then Tim Harrington called him 3 times via FaceTime, 3 times in a row. Jaylee didn't answer. So Tim Harrington turned around and called him via Snapchat.
And was that call answered?
Yes, it was.
And then did Jaylee say Tim's name, indicating that he knew who he was?
Don't leave your witness. Rephrase
Your
your
Honor,
question.
defense counsel, when I ask a general question, he objects. When I ask,
Well, asking what was his response on this?
I will do that, Your Honor.
Don't. That's a little too leading. Rephrase your question.
Detective Baker, so after Jaylee blocked Tim Harrington was triggered to contact him on an anonymous Snapchat account. Following the contact, did Jaylee ever identify who he was speaking to in the messages?
Yes, in the Snapchat messages, Jaylee told Tim to said, "Have a good night, Tim."
And what did Tim Harrington, per the messages, then do to Jaylee?
So then, but they're in the messages, Tim is asking him to come back, more than once. And so then Tim Harrington or Jaylee agreed to come over back to his apartment after Tim Harrington agreed to give Jaylee oral sex from the front.
And in your interview with Tim Harrington, did he say that was something that he did?
It's not something that he did often. No.
Did he say that he's never done that before? What did Tim Harrington say?
That's a better question.
Yes, Tim Harrington told us that he'd never given oral sex before.
And Tim Harrington, following promising to give Jaylee a sexual favor he'd never done before, what did Jaylee then agree to do?
Jaylee told Tim Harrington that he was coming over.
And then after Jaylee told him he was coming over, what did Tim Harrington do?
Tim Harrington didn't respond to any more messages on Snapchat. Instead, Tim Harrington goes to Google and searches how to strangle someone.
And when Jaylee arrived at Tim Harrington's apartment, what did he text?
He texted Tim Harrington, "Open."
And the Snapchat GPS ping location tower data Did it show Jay Lee in the area of Tim Harrington's apartment at that time?
Yes, it did.
And did Jay Lee ever send another text again?
He did not.
Brief indulgence.
All right. So, Lisa, somebody in the chat can correct me if I'm wrong. What I was getting is that this was their I was getting that this was their when Jaylee went over there the second time, it would have been the second encounter, but that all of this happened on July 8th. And I only talk about cases if we can cover it from some perspective. And I want to talk about partner harm in because there are a lot of myths, and I have some additional resources linked down in the down below. Sometimes people within can because normally when we think about some type of DV that occurs within a relationship, you're thinking it's occurring um within a within a longer relationship. But there are a lot of different types, and I do have a link to resources. And this site also has information for partner harm in poly relationships, and has resources here too. I also have some myths about DV and the LGBTQ community linked down below. And this also has additional resources. Um, and safety is important in any relationship. And I don't believe that people have the right to be harmful towards one another. It sounds like Jay Lee was concerned about Timothy getting aggressive because some of their interactions, Jay Lee was saying like almost like don't put your hands on I to what I was getting from some of the messages was that Jay Lee wasn't feeling comfortable with him. And I think it's really important. And I just say this because this is easier said than done after the fact, but in the moment, this can be really, really difficult to do. But um, I really encourage people to trust themselves. Trust themselves. Yeah. Um, Christy, thank you for sharing this part. All of Jaylee's belongings. So, did they recover the phone? I didn't know that they recovered the phone. I I thought they recovered it in a car, in Jaylee's car. I know the wallet. Did they ever recover his phone? I'm not sure. Because I know they requested records from Apple because Jay Lee had an iPhone. Maybe and before they found those documents, they had to do that. Um, my heart breaks for Jay Lee's family. I am glad that um, that people, yeah. Um, from the testimony I saw, and I did not watch everything, it was my understanding that they did not recover Jaylee's, but wallet, yes, that they found all of that. The defense is currently on the stand. Like there are people testifying now. I think people are probably going to testify on Timothy's behalf, saying, good things about Timothy that he would never do this. It reminds me of that DV case with that we recently talked about. I'm glad that I can like pull things up right here. It was with the teen boy. The girl survived. The girl survived but has severe injuries. It was the Spencer Pearson sentencing. Within that case, everybody else around him was like, "Oh my gosh, he was such a good guy." But in a relationship, he was controlling. There were, in my opinion, some red flags within relationships. And very, very difficult case. I appreciate you all asking me to cover it. We will keep an eye on the verdict. Um, Timothy's been charged with the death, with DP, with the death, and I am not sure without a body, I don't know what the jury will decide. If they did find him guilty, I could see the jury possibly saying life. I don't know. So we'll see what happens if Timothy is convicted, if and if he is, what's the punishment that the jury decides on. We will we will see. Um I like how passionate all of the law enforcement agents have been. I remember hearing about this case when Jay Lee went missing, and I didn't realize that someone had been arrested. I didn't follow it once someone had been arrested and they had a person of interest. I appreciate you all recommending this. Yeah. Zoe B, I agree. Somebody can be a great person in one context and a completely different person in a different context. And yeah, yeah. And uh, and if Timothy's main fear was like, what if it comes out that I was in this relation, like that still came out. Like, so if Timothy is for some reason found not guilty, like the fact that he had a sexual encounter with a man, like that part still came out. That part didn't say secret. So Lisa, I think they didn't arrest Timothy until 2 weeks after, and it would be understandable because Jay Lee was there. So for there to be something, but I don't believe there were concerns that because it had been 2 weeks between the time Jay Lee went missing and the time they executed the search of Timothy's apartment, they were concerned that there was time to get rid of things. They also searched the truck, um, and we don't know. A neighbor testified, because I guess the neighbor saw Timothy, like, with a wheel, but I don't know, like, there was some he saw Timothy loading up the truck with something, and nobody knows what that was, but yeah. Um, uh, alright. Yeah, and so Lisa, I believe it was 2 weeks because at first it was a missing person. I think everybody was hoping that Jay Lee would be recovered alive, and, it doesn't look like Jay Lee like, the prosecution's case is Jay Lee likely didn't survive that, July 8th. That was likely the day that he died. Um yeah, the Walmart run to for duct tape. Now, he's gonna say he used the duct tape and the packing, but I would have questions about were there any other moves where he used duct tape? Because I've moved a ton so I've moved wow, I've moved from one state to Japan, from Japan to Georgia, from Georgia to Germany, Germany to Virginia, another house in Virginia, apartments in Virginia, house. I've moved over 10 times. And you use packing tape. Use clear packing tape. I've never used duct tape in a move. Never ever. I've I've never I've never used duct tape in a move. And so I don't know. I don't know. Yeah. Yeah. And Lisa mentioned that with the manner of death that they suspect, um, it's like that there might not be that much DNA. So, yeah. Because they searched, Timothy's car. I think they suspected that Timothy, because Jay Lee's car, I think, moves from Timothy's apartment to somewhere else at a time that they believe that Timothy is already I'm sorry, Jay Lee, I'm sorry. My name, me and names, I'm sorry about that. So Jay Lee's car moves, and they think Timothy moved Jay Lee's car and might have used, like, a shirt to drive the car to not get fingerprints on it. There were a lot of, theories that came out as to why there might not be evidence because When questioned, Timothy said he had been out for a run, but it was like 80 degrees with some high humidity that day, and he was running in like a gray shirt or sweatshirt or something, and there was no sweat that could be observed, and if he had been running for the period of time that he said, so the prosecution is making it seem like there are definitely some they believe there are some lies. If if Timothy I don't think Timothy's gonna take the stand. I don't think I could be wrong, but I do not think Timothy is going to take the stand. He hasn't been asked if he is or if he's not. His defense team objects a lot. Yeah, it was 14 days. Thank you, Christy, for adding this. I also do have an article linked below that has some of the timeline. Which one is the one that has the good timeline? I think it was the Mississippi Today one. Let me see. I think it was this one. Let me make myself small. I think it's the make myself small. I think it's this article that has um a lot of the theories. And so this occurred so Timothy is 24 now. Oh, when was this written? This was from December 2nd, 2024. Yeah. Um Charged with the capital M and for kidnapping. All right. Yep. Or life without the possibility of parole. Oh, members of Harrington's family who led a prominent church in Grenada have mm, mm. I'm gonna say vigorously, but that's not what that word says. Wow, that's a good word. Um, all right. Yeah, a lot of his family members are supportive of him. Um, but that's where if his family is prominent in the community, that's where I wonder if there was some shame about being exposed. I don't know what the jury's gonna do, and I don't know how the jury is gonna feel. I do hope that they asked questions during the voir dire process when they were seating the jury, that they asked questions about, so how do does anyone have an issue with, men that wear women's high heels? Or I hope that questions were asked. People can lie during that process, but they're supposed to tell the truth. Um, uh, all right. All right. And so, like I said, this one has a lot of the details. Whoa, I didn't realize this. I don't know if this came out in trial, but during the investigation, cadaver dogs trained to identify the smell of a deceased body alerted 3 times in Harrington's bedroom and once in his living room and in his car. And I'm sure the defense, if this did come up in the trial, I'm sure the defense object. I don't know. I'm sure they had an issue with that. But wow, um, wow. Sad, sad, sad case. Like I said, my heart goes out to the family. Um, yep. So definitely a PK. His grandfather is a bishop. Wow. And to me, because like there are other prominent bishops or people whose children have come out being a part of the LGBTQ community. There are smaller communities where you are ostracized for that, or where sometimes I don't know, like things there have been issues. To me, issues around sexuality and the church having such a staunch like I don't know, the word I that comes to my mind is hate, or I don't know, like what can happen is it can hide abuse and harm. And that's where sometimes I think about the thing that comes to my mind initially is like the Catholic Church or within we talked recently about a closed sect, like a closed group where the members or where like a leader would come and live in the home with members and harm was happening there. It's just it really causes issues. I've mentioned to you all here, I do identify as a Christian. I'm extremely liberal, and my church is accepting, and not every church is. There are churches that are affirming. Affirming churches, and I've had clients that are a part of affirming faith communities where it's not this, because there's a show, I haven't watched it. There's a show, is it on TLC or something? It's like My Husband's Not Gay. It's Mormon men that have same-sex attraction. Like that's what they like, that's the language. They don't like that's the language that they use, or that because they view it as they marry women, but they view it as like a struggle that they struggle with, but they decide to marry women to like live a certain way. And I did not watch the show. I've watched multiple people talk about the show, and I don't know if any of the people on it, because it sounds like it was recorded years ago. I don't know if any of the people are still married, but wow. uh, hey Lindsay, as a queer person of faith, loads of religious trauma and conservative family. I'm glad that we were able to talk about it. Religious trauma is real, especially for the LGBTQ community, because sometimes people can almost be forced. So like a girl can be like, "Oh, how do you know you don't like you have to try to kiss a boy, or you have to try to," like sometimes people are forced to try to be a certain way within communities, and I don't think that's helpful. Yes, I do realize that within the Mormon faith, it's viewed as a pathology, and they do have some therapists that will do the pray the gay away, which does not. I I don't think that works personally, but I think yeah, I don't think that works. All right. Now, there are times when the attraction came out of trauma, and trauma doesn't orient, it can disorient. So I have worked with people that where they were harmed by somebody of a particular sex, and then they decided to like not date anyone because it was just way too triggering to be with a person of that particular sex. And then through trauma work, they just like whoever, like if they can, like they make decisions, but trauma can disorient, it does not orient. So that's a whole thing. I also got that from Dr. Joe Court. I think I'm going to go to one of his trainings again this year. So this in 2025. Y'all, it's 2 weeks till Christmas. Are we doing okay? I said I was gonna talk about the hair. Okay, so for anyone that's watching, hopefully, so if you just want to hear the case, I am done talking about that. We are now gonna talk about the hair. So on Sunday, I did straighten my hair. I do not do it often. I typically do not do it in the spring or summer because it just poofs. And I straightened it Sunday night, and Monday morning, it was like a downpour. I was like, I apologize to people in Virginia that had rain on Monday. It's because I straighten my hair. If I straighten my hair, it's gonna rain. Um my hair is still naturally curly. I don't use relaxers. It's just um and but I did trim my hair. I had some split and dead ends, and so I did that. Thank you, Lindsay, for sharing this. Church Clarity, that has a database for churches and their stances according to their websites or personal experiences. Thank you, because there is a big difference between affirming and accepting. A huge difference between those two. Um, all right, because that range goes all the way to homophobia. Because there are some churches that preach things that are viewed as pretty, like, yeah, it's not good. Huh. And Lisa, straightening it can impact the curl pattern. I do a low heat so it doesn't, because if you notice, it's not it's not so I do a lower heat. There is still some curl in there, and I do a lot of oils and things like that. So yeah. Yes. And all church, because churches often want your money. I don't know if that's all. People will say it's about the people and it's about all those things. I don't know. I don't know. Or they want numbers. I don't know. I think it should be about people, but I hope it's about, but I don't, it might not. I don't know. So, um, and I think it's important for people to have safe community. Safe community is really, really important, um, especially for mental health. So I wouldn't be a part of a church that didn't. So, because there are churches that will say if you take antidepressants, you're not praying hard enough, and I'm like, oh no, like that's like that's some people get their serotonin in a bottle, and that's fine. Um, or there's some people that view mental health as like demonic or stuff like that. And so I wouldn't be a part of churches or ministries that were like that. My pastor is open about being in therapy. He has anxiety, and it got so bad that he took a 6 month sabbatical, and which is unheard of, especially within a Black church. And the church was extremely supportive of him, and cuz and he also talked about, like, since being a pastor, he struggled with alcohol, and that he had to, like, address those things. And so yeah. All right. Dr. Barry, we've been in a drought. Oh well. I can come to your area, do my hair, and you will get rain. It's 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 just something that happens. Ah, wow. Lisa, I love that. Your faith community doesn't take financial donations from visitors. Your presence is the gift of fellowship. I love that. My church says that the members around visitors are supposed to give for them. So that's something that's said. Uh, um, and I think it helps remind. So, Lindsay, pastors are people. Like they're not these, like, like they're still people, and they can still have real struggles, and they need to address them, because when people have unaddressed issues and struggles, like that's when problems happen, and they can become harmful to the people that they're trying to serve. And so I think it's super important. Oh, Jessica, that happened to you. Went to the salon and got highlights and a blowout, and now it's pouring. I feel your pain. I feel your pain. So that's when, so I do, they're called like Bantu knots. So, because I won't do a like a, so I'll just do these, and then like it'll it'll get a little bounce to it, and it'll be fine. I'll probably wash it. It'll probably be curly again by next week. Probably be curly again by next week. Um, Wow. And so Mormons are expected to give 10% of earnings. And so, and within Christian communities, it's often considered a tithe. So within Christian communities, it's 10% is normally the minimum, is normally what's expected. At my church, they encourage people to, because like there's no like offering that's passed around. People give electronically, and or there are like if they're physically doing a donation, there's like a box. I don't know. There's like something locked towards the back or something like that. All right. Ah, yes. Lindsay, it's really important for there to be honesty and transparency within religious communities, because pastors can be susceptible to like narcissism. Like, because like to think you're called of God, and like you have this, like sometimes there can be, like sometimes pastors can be a little puffed up, and it's important that there be some checks and balances so they don't become a cult. It's really important. Really, really important to not do that. Is something taken away if if tithing isn't given. So, it depends on the church. So, like, our church doesn't check. Like, we don't have to submit tax returns. Is that so? Like, my church doesn't know. Like, I get a receipt for how much I give for taxes, but I don't have to. Like, I don't have to submit my income, so they don't know how much I give. It's it's not a thing. And there are some people that don't give anything at all, and they're still members. So there's that. And like, and that's not like, it is what it is. And so um there is a sermon, I think it's called Show Me the Money, where they talk about the money that's given. So my church is big on serving the community, and the money that's given, they let us know exactly how the money was spent. And I think 30% of the money given is salaries for because there's a whole bunch of staff. I go to a very, very large church, and then the church tithes the tithe. So 10% of what's given is given out. Cause I think my church, like, it's a multi-million, like, it's a lot of money comes in, and then a lot of that money goes out. They did a donation to $1 million to the African American History Museum. We just hosted like a historically Black college and university festival. It's normally sponsored by some, because one year it was sponsored by Facebook. Like, normally there are sponsors that collaborate for it. And then there are feed, because we do like a for Thanksgiving. There was a feed the 5,000 where they do all these boxes for people for the holidays. And then if members are struggling financially, they can go to the church for financial support. My church also has a counseling center, and not every community has that, but yeah, but bam. And if I needed therapy, I would not go to the church counseling center. It's my thing. As a therapist, I like being able um to like just to go somewhere else. All right, y'all. All right. I appreciate you all. I need to get some notes done and some reports. And so I will see y'all on no later than Saturday. It might be on Thursday because Chloe Driver is getting sentenced. Um, so it might be Thursday or Friday, depending on how things go. So keep an eye out for any pop up lives, because Chloe Driver is going to be sentenced um, on Thursday, I believe. So keeping an eye on that. I hope y'all have a good one. I will see y'all next time. Bye.